Welcome back to the Wolf of Queen Street podcast. Welcome back to the audio podcast or the YouTube series if you join us today. This podcast series, the Wolf of Queen Street, is an entrepreneurship podcast series that gets people on to have their say about how they've overcome their challenges, their darknesses, or overcoming holds and boundaries that society is putting on us today to tell us how we can't achieve what we want to do and how they're trying to dictate what is success to society, what is success to an entrepreneur, and so forth. But before we get started today, today's episode is brought to you by the Dark Heart Grooming Company, skincare for men, only using organic, natural ingredients. And you can find them on Instagram under Dark Heart Grooming Co. And the next time you place an order, just put in the Wolf 10 for a 10% discount and make sure you enjoy the products. Today, I'm joined by Briana Bowley, someone that I've, again, as always on my shows, I've seen her image, I've seen her brand, and seen her on social media. And I was quite excited to reach out to her because, as well as having a brand and a coaching and a mentorship and an educational platform, she's also a podcast host herself. She's got a podcast brand called the Live Free Experience. It's been running, I believe it's just over 2 years in the last couple of weeks. In the end of November was a 2-year anniversary. She's achieved over 90 episodes. So pretty much from her to me, I'm the novice and she's the senior in the sense of the podcast world. She also has the Live Free movement as well as the Live Free Academy for an educational platform as well as the coaching platform. And there's a couple of unique things about Briana that she's overcome, challenges she's knocked down to get her to where she's today. And one of the things we'll talk about is a love for MMA, as well as explaining there's a moment that you've spoken about in the past, about having to do a speech, standing there with no clothes on in front of a group of people with no clothes on. So welcome, Briana, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to have a bit of a jam with you.
That's awesome. So as I said before, you've got the Live Free Experience is your podcast series that you've been running at the moment. I believe it just hit 90th. Your last one that you did just a couple of weeks ago was 90th episode, and it was a bit of a recap of a current state. So to a lot of people that's starting or running a podcast and so forth, is you get these momentums of starting one, you're excited, you go halfway through, you get to your 1 year, and you readdress what you're trying to focus on and go forward. What I noticed on this exact episode, and I'll let you explain further to listeners, is you did I believe it was about 19 or 20 minutes, somewhere around there, and it was a sort of a recap of where you felt you as your individual, your inner self, stood at the moment around your brand. And it was pretty much as I would say, a come to Jesus moment of, I am not happy, or I'm not entirely sure where I am and placed with myself as an individual around the brand and around the podcast, and almost needing some space and time away to readdress what I want to do about it. Would you want to take the listeners through that sort of moment? And I know to anyone, if you went and listened to it, it is a real true to the heart episode, because there was a few moments, Briana, I can imagine if there was a video on you, you had to step away from the mic, there were some soft moments of you fighting through challenges of emotional state and trying to get through what you wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess I'm a big believer that, in life we go through cycles. So, first I suppose we have to get the internal clarity, and then we go out and we create externally. And then as we go through all these shifts and changes externally, it then forces us to come back in internally. So it's, this ongoing cycle. And that's in terms of relationships, that's in terms of business, obviously in this case, the podcast. And so what had been playing out for me, I'm a big believer in always checking in internally first for myself, because, if it doesn't feel good, what's the point in doing it, And so for me, the podcast was, as you sort of voiced, it was starting to get to a point where I still loved it, but it was starting to feel more and more like a chore. And as I said, if it doesn't feel good, why bother? And so I was sort of I was checking in with myself, and I was going, is this something I still want to continue on with? And the answer was yes. But what needs to change in order to make it, feel lighter and feel a little bit more like something that I'm lit up to do? And for me, it came down to the fact that what I realized was self-expression for me is huge. It is what drives me in everything that I do. And so the podcast was created as a means to really provide that platform to other people. But as I sort of started to soul search, I realized that I was actually doing that at the expense of myself having a voice. And so rather than, having it this ongoing backwards and forwards narrative with my guests, I'd come to realize that it was purely about them.
Yeah.
And many times there'd be moments where I may slightly disagree with, their perspective. And rather than kind of opening up that, that conversation, I'd just stay quiet. And so I guess what I've come to realize, in that internal sort of self-reflection mode of recent is that we can have both. I am able to express myself and have a guest completely express themselves without it taking away from either of our viewpoints. So that was really, I guess, me, jumping on and having that sort of solo episode, speaking through some of my challenges was really about going, okay, here I am, here's my voice, expect more of this, and moving forward, I'll still be creating a platform for others.
It's definitely a question I've asked myself through the episodes that have gone at the moment is about the chances of having someone on the show that you would have a conflict with or you won't see eye to eye with. That's natural in life, but then again is how do you handle that situation? And if it happens more often than not on people that come on the show going, as you say, in the energy and the focus, if someone comes on and it's not the right vibe, is it detrimental to the brand at that moment? Is it detrimental to that episode because there can't be a realistic to and fro in between the two? And I'm guessing that's a learning as you go through and realizing of what you want to achieve in the brand and the message you're trying to say and so forth.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had times in the past where I have spoken up and there has been an ongoing, I guess, undertone of, mutual disagreement. And having come out of that and reflected on it, what I came to realize was it is actually okay to say, I'm not going to publish this. I think as podcast hosts, we go through and we have that conversation with someone and we think that means that we must now publish it.
Yeah.
We always have the choice, So that's been a huge learning for me, that just because, you spend the time doing something and then choose to not continue on with it doesn't actually take away from, it's not a must that you must then go ahead and publish it.
I mean, I've had people reach out to me and ask me just from simple tools and sets and going, hey, how can I edit out this section because something was said and we didn't agree with it and I don't want it to be made public. And you have that dilemma, not just in podcasts, you have it in content, you have it in life, you have it in social media today at the moment about, do I want that message to be shared to the public when at that point it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to say, or I didn't say it correctly enough. And I totally agree with you in the sense of if you're producing a podcast, producing a brand or business, irrespective of what platform you're doing it across, if you don't agree with what you produced or someone else has produced on your behalf with your image, by all means, you don't have to feel pressured to release it. It would have just, unfortunately, be a waste of everyone's time, but it's part of the learnings and part of the experiences to go in there because putting it out there, the only thing it could do is hurt the image or the brand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So going through some of your background in your story, I know that you overcame a lot of challenges through your life itself. I know you had body dysmorphia, overcoming that, as well as eating disorders and alcohol and drug addiction problems as well. It's something I don't want to say it's not common is the wrong word to say, and anyone that's going to get pissed off if I use the word common, sorry, I don't mean to piss you off, but it's something that's been brought more forward at the moment with people's lives because it's more acceptable to talk about the problems, which is a great point in today's society. You can put up your hand. So you've seen it more and more, people coming over disorders or challenges in their life in darkness. And there's places for you to say, I need help and please help me out in that. I'd love to hear your story around those sort of dark spaces you had in your life and what you did to overcome them, or if there was someone that helped you, or if there was a moment that you hit the bottom, just finally say, enough is enough. I've got to get my way in the right direction.
I'll do my best to kind of cover this succinctly. Yeah, I mean, for me, like looking back on my upbringing, I feel that in a family sense, I had a really supportive upbringing. But in terms of life outside of the home, I felt I had a very challenging upbringing. Bullying, I really always felt like the outcast. And so looking back now, I can see that all of those challenges were a beautiful gift. I mean, I'm a big believer that those who, the greatest entrepreneurs out there have all had challenging upbringings. Challenges and adversity create leaders. So for me, looking back, I can see that they're all really beautiful gifts. But I was always, because I always felt like the outcast, I was always kind of, I guess, on this journey of trying to find my place, trying to find where I fit in, trying to find my people. And so, through that took me through a journey of, as you mentioned, a lot of, alcohol and drug abuse, in order to, looking back at the time, I didn't realize this was the case, but looking back now, I can see that for me, it was about numbing the fact that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted from life. And I was completely subordinating, finding that because of what I thought I had to be in order to fit the mold, basically. So yeah, a lot of, binge drinking, like heavy drug use every weekend. And then I was sort of yo-yoing through this experience of, at the time I was a personal trainer. So I was yo-yoing through this experience of during the week, clean eating, training heavily, all of those sorts of things. And then on the weekend, undoing all of my hard work by, going out and using drugs and pulling all-nighters and all of that. And I had this moment, I think it was my 22nd birthday. I took all of my friends out clubbing. I knew some of the bouncers at this particular club that we'd gone to. So they hooked me up with, I think it was like $100 Aussie dollar drinks voucher. And so me being the one who, wanted to fit in and please everyone, I said, okay, who wants a drink? And of course, everyone's popped their hand up. So I think I bought myself one drink, and then the rest of the gift voucher was gone on everyone else. And I sort of went, okay, that's okay. They'll shout me in return. It's my birthday after all. And then before I know it, they've all gone, well, we've got work tomorrow morning. We're going home. Yeah. So I ended up spending, my whole night pretty much with no money, and all my friends going home. And I kind of managed to find some other people to hang out with for the night. But the next morning I woke up hungover and miserable, going, well, and can I swear on your podcast?
By all means.
Perfect. I woke up the next morning and said, well, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Something's got to change. My friends don't actually care about me. Yeah. And so pretty much from that moment on, I went all but cold turkey for I think for the next probably about 18 months. I didn't touch alcohol, and dived fully into the fitness side of things, not realizing that I'd essentially replaced one addiction with another addiction. Yeah. So, then it was bodybuilding, fitness modeling. So I got into, as you mentioned, competitive fitness modeling. For anyone that knows a little bit about that industry, it's very intensive in terms of, the physique that you end up building is not maintainable. And so coming out of my very first competition, I went from just being, I guess in the best physical condition of my life in terms of how I looked. I absolutely wasn't the healthiest I'd ever been, but in terms of aesthetics, the best shape of my life, to suddenly stacking on, 10 kilos within 7 days and going, well, holy fuck, like what do I do now? And just having this, uncontrollable urge to eat. And so, with that, of course, came all these experiences of not wanting to leave the house because I thought that everyone would be judging me on how I looked and sort of going, wow, she's really let herself go. So what came about as a result of that was kind of coming to see that it didn't actually matter how much we made the external transformation. If internally we still believed ourselves to be the same person we were, nothing really changed, and eventually we would go back to being the person that we were originally before the physical transformation. So then it became this ongoing experience, basically coming back within and really starting to understand the mind, understanding the body, understanding, that all of our experiences are stored in ourselves, and that if we don't choose to actively reflect on them and quote unquote clear them, we're just going to keep creating the same results in life.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's a journey that I've seen to a lot of people I talk about, and it was a great point that you said you went from one addiction to another. You transferred from what you believed was one bad situation into you thought was a better or good situation. I've actually done years and years ago, I got into the bodybuilding scene myself, got into it, and I totally understand the journey. I understand the dilemma, the darkness, the depression that comes with it. I actually had to pull out at the end because mentally I was in a very, very bad state. Physically, I looked amazing. Mentally, I was as frail as could be. I never stepped back into gym for about 6 months. I just couldn't go back into it. But as you said, you went from one negative addiction, started in something you thought was positive, but because of that nature, then you haven't taught yourself mentally how to take on something positively without going too crazy in the sense of making it a re-addiction and going into it. And unfortunately, it's different of if you picked up addiction of reading books and going, great, I'm going to make myself smarter. You're going to get smarter, you're going to get good, you're going to get good, and you're going to learn a lot. You're going to, by going into bodybuilding or physique training and instead of one of those different niches, going and getting addicted into that space is a little bit detrimental for your physical state, your mental state, and so forth. And it's definitely a challenge. So I can imagine moving from that space, you're still in the physical and the training space at the moment, in the personal trainer space. But you've also not recently, a few years ago, as you spoke, you launched the Live Free movement itself that encases the experience, the brand, the podcast, as well as an education sector. So that talk me through of how did you transition to that space, as well as the moment. I know you spoke about on one of your own shows about you sat down with some of your mentors to figure out what you wanted to do and how you wanted to realize of what the brand was going to be called. I love that moment where you had someone help you and walk in and tell you about the brand name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm just going to correct you there. So it's the Live Free Group. There
we go. Sorry, my apologies.
No, you're fine. Which is it's an umbrella brand, which, as you mentioned, the podcast, the Live Free Experience. We also have the Live Free Movement, which is a coaching and consulting brand for peak performance. And then finally, the Live Free Academy, which is an educational platform where we run events for athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, coaches, in order to educate them on, I guess, the back end side of whatever their craft, whatever their industry is. Because I mean, again and again, we see these athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs who they're incredible at what they do, and yet they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to get their message in front of an audience. And unfortunately, if no one knows who you are, no one knows who you are, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about educating them how to gain those sponsorships, how to gain, how to basically get traction, how to monetize whatever their niche is, so that they no longer have to continuously be juggling between, doing what they love and at the same time doing what they love and making no money whilst doing something that they don't love so much in order to fund what they do love.
Yeah. There was a guy, and just touching back onto the fitness sense, there was a previous Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath, one of the greatest Mr. Olympias of all time. He came and did a private show in New Zealand. I'm talking about maybe 7 years ago. I was lucky enough to see him talk, and he was one of the first guys at that stage in the sport, in the world, that realized that you've got to start revenue driving on your brand while you've got a career, so that when you step away from your career, that revenue still continues. And that's a challenge a lot of sports stars, anyone that's in the limelight, Hollywood stars, all that sort of stuff, is they go, great, while I'm here and I'm making money and people are seeing me, the dollars are coming in. But the day I retire, or the day I step away, or the day I get injured, those dollars don't come in, but my lifestyle's still the same. So if I'm spending $2 million, $20 million a year on my expenses, and you don't have that coming in, and you haven't been taught, you're then chasing those dollars while you should be chasing, should be enjoying the life and passively have that income in. And Phil Heath was one of the first guys that ever did that. It built a brand supplemental line, a brand, speaking gigs, all that arrangements while he was active, still Mr. Olympia and getting in there. So as soon as he stepped away, which he did, he still makes more money now from that brand than he did when he was competing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important for me. You know, as I mentioned earlier on, self-expression is the very thing that drives me, not only for me to be able to express who I am, but also to create the platform for other people to do the same. And so, you know, that's what the Live Free group is all about. It's about not only creating a platform for myself and for others, but also to them, you know, have them be able to expand upon that so that what they love, that self-expression, you know, can be the thing that actually, you know, that they've monetized and that they can do full time. Because if it doesn't feel good, why do it, you know?
So just as I said earlier, going into this piece, do you want to tell our listeners about the point of someone giving you the name for this brand?
Yes. So Jack Murray was a business coach of mine. I'm trying to think, when was it? Going back, I think about 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was really funny. I was working through, it was, for me at the time, it was a major investment, working with both himself and his business partner, Aaron Whitnish. And I went and spent some time working with them in a 3-day intensive over in Bali. And it's funny because Jack's become quite a good friend of mine nowadays. And he said to me that out of everyone that they've ever worked with, it was me that resisted the process the most, you know. Yeah, resisting, you know, we were kind of brainstorming, you know, different ideas for the business name, and they were throwing all these options at me, and I just kind of kept going, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And so the intention was, by day one, we had the name, and we were good to, you know, continue kind of building on the business itself or the brand itself. Day two, midway through, we still didn't have the name, and I could see everyone getting really frustrated, and I was feeling really frustrated, and I was getting to the point where I'm like, fuck, maybe I should just, you know, settle.
Yeah. It's called yellow ducks or something.
Yeah.
Or fluffy ducks, you know.
Right. Right. So, you know, I'm kind of going, well, fuck, like, you know, everyone's getting pissed off here. What do I do? And so Jack's kind of, and what I love about Jack and Aaron is that they are so focused on, you know, alignment and coming from a place of love, right? Never from a place of shoulds or have tos or any of that. And so Jack sort of said, okay, I'm gonna duck off. I'm gonna go to the room. I'm gonna just meditate. I'm gonna check in and you know, get back to a really centered state, rather than, you know, in this place of frustration and like, you know, trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's wandered off, and then about, I think 10 minutes later, he's come back in and he's looked me dead in the eye and he's gone, the Live Free movement. And I was like, instant goosebumps, shiver down my spine. I'm like, that's it. And 4 years later, and you know, we've built on the Live Free experience, the Live Free Academy, and yeah, here we are.
That's amazing. It's an awesome story, because I went through the same dilemma, and a lot of people do. It's funny because you want to start, you've got an idea, you've got a straw man, you've got a business you want to start, and then everyone turns around and goes, okay, what's it going to call it? What are you going to call it? And it's funny, it should feel like one of the most simple things to do, but sometimes the most hardest, because you got to think it through. If you're thinking it through from a journey or an experience from a brand, you got to make sure that's relatable to catch people's eyes straight from the bat. So you can't call it just, you know, my name or something like that. You've got to be able to build it into it. And it's such a dilemma a lot of people have. And most of the times, most people actually, funny enough, will outsource this, as you did with yourself. You went to Bali, as most people do at the moment. It's quite popular in 2019. And get people to help you, because you got to get outside that box. Like you said, you're fighting the boundaries, and you're like, no, fuck off. I'm not going to pick that name. I want something nice and something nice. And I can imagine he went back to his room and he would have pulled out his Bible or his coaching Bible and gone through like the 999th selection that he had. And he said, God damn, I've got one more left. You know, I've got one more left on that page. Let me see if this one will work. And I can imagine that, you know, it's sort of something like that, and came back with it. But it's great that it's totally relatable, and it's totally to the brand, to where it stands today. And it's such a great story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so, and this was where the struggle came in, because, you know, for me, I am so transient in nature, and I really wanted something that encompassed everything, it encompassed every aspect of life, because I do believe that, whether it's how we perform physically, how we communicate in relationships, how we perform in business or financially or anything, all of it's interwoven. And so I wanted to ensure that the brand moving forward could go off in any direction, and could interweave between all of them, because, as I said, I'm so transient in nature, and my business is a reflection of that. And so when he said, the Live Free movement, I went, oh, well, that speaks for itself, right? It's ultimate freedom.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And what I love about it as well is I'm guessing it started in one direction and it's opened up into, different key areas. Like you said, you got the Live Free group, and then you got the movement experience and so forth underneath it. You got the podcast, the coaching, the academy. So it means that you've been able to grow with it and see different niches within your umbrella of your brand, and then offer further services, from just actually sitting there talking on a podcast series to actually providing the academy, or as well as one-on-one coaching and mentorship. So something else that I saw as going back into your brand, and we spoke about just in the beginning, there's two big things that I picked off, and I would love for you to take our listeners through it. One's funny and one's a little bit intense. Let's start with the intense one first. To anyone that's ever followed Gary Vee, I'm a big fan of his, about what he does in Gary Vee in the world. And people usually say to Gary Vee, what is the motivation, or how do you motivate yourself sometimes on a daily basis? And he has this very morbid, strange response, in the sense that he says that every morning he wakes up, he looks in the mirror, or he looks at himself in his inner self, and he goes, what happens if my family dies today? Or what happens if something happens to my family, my wife, my kids, or anything in that sense? And what focus will it give me to drive to be better of myself today? So a lot of people have gone out and gone, shit, that's, it's quite a struggling moment to put yourself in every day to give it to. But if you know Gary Vee, you can understand how it puts fire up his arse and how he's one of the best in the world. Coming onto that, there was a piece that you spoke about where you went through and you spoke about having to write death notes, or having to write notes as if you had died about and to certain people. Like I said, there's a bit of a dark moment and a bit of soft moment. Take me through that, and also take me through what did that relate to, and open yourself up to and understand as well, going through that experience.
So to give a little bit of, background information about what that whole, what the intention was for that.
Yep.
It was actually part of a self-development course that I was a participant in. I'm a big believer in continuously up-leveling and upskilling. So it was part of something that I had signed up for. And in this, and I won't give too much away in case, anyone does happen to jump in as part of this course. But the process itself was that basically we were on a spaceship, and I think there was 75 of us, and we were rapidly losing oxygen, and only 8 people were in the escape pod. There were only 8 seats, and there was only enough oxygen and supplies to get 8 people back to Earth. And so between 75 of us, we were given 3 minutes to figure out who lived and who died. And you can imagine the room just went into chaos. And everyone's shit came up, I'm a big believer how we do anything is how we do everything. Yep. And so we literally got to witness in real time how different people show up in pressure circumstances. And, seeing some people who were, going on, about what they're creating in the world and why they deserve to live because of that. There were people saying, they've got children at home who need their parents. And then there were other people, myself being one of them, who just went, well, fuck this, I choose myself, and went and sat in the escape pod. And then of course seeing the reactions of other people of, you selfish fucks, basically, like, how dare you? And so it was really just incredible to see everyone's different response to such a high pressure situation. Yep. And so after, this 3 minutes was up, they said, okay, you've got a further 2 minutes to write a letter to your loved ones, which will be taken back to Earth in case you don't make it. And for me, what came up was, it was actually really quite intense. It really hit me like a ton of bricks, and I went, holy shit, like,
Yep.
as much as I've been living, I've been holding back so much based on what people would think.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately felt myself starting to tear up, going, oh my God, there's so much in my life that I haven't done. You know, there's so much that is kind of on the internal checklist of what I want to achieve and what I want to experience before I die. And I've done, you know,
Yep.
I've done a lot of it, but at the same time, in the scheme of things, I haven't done much. And so that really woke me up and sobered me up to the fact that I was making what other people thought of me so much more important than just going out and living. And I think that's something that we all fall into the trap of doing. And so, yeah, writing this letter to my loved ones, you know, I'm trying to think what I wrote down. I basically said, you know, please don't mourn me. Know
Mm-hmm.
that I died doing what I love. And rather than, you know, being sad about the fact that I've gone, use my life as the reminder to like live yours, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an incredible experience, and I really do put that down to being one of the main things as to why I've chosen to really step it up in the recent months.
It's sort of an experience I can imagine that very few people get put into. Anyone that goes into personal development or has followed any one of those, Tony Robbins, sort of my cup of tea that I follow, they put you in front of that, and for that exact reason of until you get put in that motion and get put in that state correct in the right emotion, you then can relate to it as if it is real. So you can relate to it as if it is actually happening to me, and I have to send out this message and I have to communicate this, and then you turn around and go, like you said, fuck it. I've missed everything, or I didn't do anything. I didn't experience anything. And you go, oh, cool. I've traveled. No, you haven't traveled. Like going to 2 countries, that's not traveling. Or I wanted to learn more in my field, or I wanted to become the best in my field, but I didn't follow my opportunities. And it's having to self-impose challenge or darkness to be able to realize the difference between where you are and where you want to be, and how big that step up actually is. Because, you know, to anyone that's ever hit the bottom from addiction to drugs and alcohol, depression, you know, any of that sort of stuff, when they do hit the rock bottom themselves and they come back to normality, there's such a massive shift into that. But a lot of people that just sit in life normally will never understand what the difference of that level is underneath it. So putting yourself into that space mentally, you can then see what it is and go, wow, I actually thought I had a great life. No, you haven't. You've just been a boring, lazy shit. Get out and have a great life. And you can do that and experience it by making 1 or 2 small changes.
Absolutely. And that was something that I realized. I mean, don't get me wrong. As much as I realized that I haven't been living, like I love my life. I absolutely adore my life. And I do call it a life by design.
Yep.
And after having that experience, I went, well, it's this much of what I'm actually capable of.
Yep.
So, you know, knowing that, well, I guess having my death like thrown in my face, you know, it was like, oh, fuck, like I really do. I've fallen into the trap of being complacent. And now's the time to get out of that and really like challenge myself on a whole new level.
So I wanted to ask as well, is the next example, I'm wondering if it's actually at the same event. So I'm not sure if it is, but talking about, is it, I can see you nodding your head there. Again, something I heard, I had to bring it up. And I don't know if it was a metaphorically, the way you were talking and this experience, if it is actually legitimately that you had to do a speech on stage in front of people, and either clothing was optional or none or something, but take us through the situation of what had to happen.
Yes. So again, yes, it was at the same event. And funnily enough, this was actually the task we had to do just before the spaceship. Yeah, so this was really about, you know, as human beings, and it's funny because you mentioned earlier that, you know, drug and alcohol addiction is becoming more and more openly spoken about.
Yep.
As more and more people choose to speak up, you know. So this task was about the fact that as human beings, we carry so much shame because, you know, we have these taboo topics which no one ever speaks about. And sadly, one of the things that we carry the most guilt and shame around is our body. You know, it's this vessel that carries us around this incredible life. And so the task was, well, you know, I guess with shame and with guilt, they're such low frequency emotions that they actually begin to, over a period of time, if we don't move them out of ourselves, if we don't release them, we start to attract, or we start to manifest illness within the body.
Correct.
And so the easiest way to shift emotions, you know, low frequency emotions like shame and guilt, is to actually have a moment of courage and be seen in that emotion with dignity. And so the task was to allow yourself to be seen, allow yourself, you know, your body to be seen. And so 75 people all had the choice of stripping down to minimal clothing, as much as we felt comfortable with. I chose to go completely naked. For the women, we all showed up with no makeup. Basically, the idea was as close to natural as possible. So no jewelry, and then stand there in complete vulnerability, just allowing every single person to see us. And then I think 5 at a time we went in, and it wasn't a speech as such, but we went in 5 people at a time and told the group the thing that we're most ashamed of, or the thing that we held the most guilt and shame around. And we had to share it with dignity and then make eye contact with every single person in order to have that shame dissipate. And what the experience I had after that was like this, the only way I can describe it is a feeling of space. You know, it was like this feeling of freedom, of holy shit, I didn't realize that I was carrying this weight around for my entire life. And now that I've shared the weight with other people, suddenly, you know, the weight is lifted. And it's I guess you kind of realize once you move that, how much joy, like how much capacity we have for all the other good things we want to create in their life.
I can't imagine the moment I'm struggling to see myself ever making that crazy enough decision. I mean, we've all been crazy and gone streaking at some stage, but to stand in a room with 75 people and do that, very few things make me feel anxious. And at the moment, my hands are a little bit clammy, just to say that. So I can imagine to anyone that's listening at the moment, and some people are like, hell yeah, I'm in, and other people are like, what the fuck are you doing, right? But again, it's like you said, it's the freedom of the moment to yourself, but as well as the confidence in yourself and what you're trying to say and achieve and so forth. And this event, funny enough, not to talk about it too much, but it sounds like a really good party in Vegas. You guys having a bit of an up and down ride and all these crazy things that you guys are doing, but it's there for a reason. It's there for a purpose, and it teaches us so much. Like you said, the space of the awareness that you learn from doing that moment of being able to speak people in a very precarious position that you never find yourself in life with, and then going straight into that, back into the spaceship example, and put yourself in a very bottom state to pick up the difference of where you should be in life.
Well, it was incredible. I mean, as humans, we have experiences with other people and we immediately categorize them. I know for me, there were men in the room where I'd automatically, just based off first impression, categorize them as, well, he's really good looking, so he's probably a jerk. And, this guy's whatever, automatically just made assumptions of people based on past experience.
Yep.
And so seeing all of these people completely stripped bare of, any I guess, masks to hide behind, whether that be makeup, jewelry, clothes, and then get up and share their humanness. The connection in the group afterwards was like nothing I've ever experienced before, because we got to meet each other at a level of just completely human.
Yeah.
And we got to see each other's insecurities, and we got to say, well, regardless of those insecurities, regardless of what you have or haven't done in life, I see you. And it was just the most incredible thing.
So as you're coming through all of this at the moment, we spoke about in the beginning about readdressing yourself in the last episode of your podcast. What is the main focus now, from now till sort of first month in 2020, and the direction for 2020 for yourself on the different entities within the brand?
For me, my focus has shifted a little bit away from the brand for the time being. because, and again, you know, I've this is kind of the theme. I spoke about this with the podcast as well. I felt that the brand was almost hiding me to a degree. You know, the brand was sort of my way of still being in there, but behind the scenes. And so my focus now moving forward is really allowing myself to build my brand, to be seen, to be at the forefront.
Yep.
And then as a result, allowing that to then feed into the brand. So the brand's absolutely still part of it, but right now it's just at the kind of back end focus.
So I'm going to ask you a harder question, similar question to what we just asked, because I know there's going to be some of my fans sitting and going, hold on, Briana, you've done 90 episodes on a podcast series. You own 3 entities under your umbrella. How are you not the face of your brand, or how are you hiding or behind? How is it that you are behind this brand, don't feel like in the front of it? So again, I can imagine it's something you are trying to work through at the moment and trying to find, but I'll be interested to see if you could give me a little bit more info on that and saying, how do you feel that you're not the front when you're doing so much actually as the front of the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to sum that up, what it's been is that running this brand, and particularly some of the caliber of individuals and clubs that we worked with within these brands, I guess I've sort of fallen into the trap of being what I thought I had to be. So falling into the trap of, you know, being a little bit more corporate, or being, and it's been subtle. It's been subtle moments of turning myself down because if I swore when I wanted to swear, well, then maybe I might lose this contract with, you know, this team. Or if, you know, if I put up a photo where you could see my belly button or whatever, then, you know, these people might go, oh, that's a little bit unprofessional. We don't want to work with them. So as much as I was, or I have been the kind of face of the brand, at the same time, it was a version of me that was turned down. And was constantly going, how do I have to show up in this space in order for people to want to work with me? And what really woke me up, and I'm not actually quite so sure where this realization came from, but what I realized is that you can't influence a crowd, you can't influence an industry or a niche while you blend in. And so I had to come to accept the fact that, yes, there absolutely may be circumstances where, you know, particular businesses or teams or individuals go, well, we don't want to work with, you know, the Live Free group because Briana swears too much, or because whatever it might be. And going, well, you know what, it's actually more important for me to show up as myself than it is to land that deal. And knowing within myself that I have the power to find that opportunity through being true to myself rather than turning the volume down on myself in order to align with that opportunity. Does that answer it a little bit better?
That answers exactly what I was hoping you were going to answer. Because the reason why I went into it is I'm hoping that there's a few people that is listening right now going, God damn, I'm doing that same fucking shit every single day for my customers and my clients and for everyone else, and having the same dilemma of putting on a filter so that people that see you, or you put in a filter on yourself, so your perception is better to what you think you're going to get more customers. If you're good at what you do, you focus on what you do, and you keep true to yourself, there's enough business out in the world to make everyone rich. There's 7 billion people out in the world. You'll get rich. Doesn't mean rich from money. Doesn't mean rich from success. It means rich from being able to do what you want to do and do enough of it. So that's why I was pushing that question, so that the listeners can see as well, in the sense of the dilemma you're going through of having to tweak that down. And like you say, in the swearing, and it was quite funny earlier, I asked if you could cuss on the show. By all means, fucking swear like you want. But that's a big one. That's a big one in society today. Dress code, dress code and language. And I'm definitely finding that more and more and more at the moment is language is getting a lot softer, because people are realizing, like the biggest players in the world, the Gary V's, the Tony Robbins, and so forth, they say what they want to say. If you don't like it, you're not going to get the best guy in the business, because that's the way they talk. Dress code as well. The biggest entrepreneurs, biggest business owners in the world these days on suit and tie. They come in slacks and kicks and shorts and T-shirts, but it allows, and I think corporations that are smart enough have realized it as well, and it allows to give people freedom, because more companies that I've gone into and seen that they've had a relaxed dress code, I've seen that there's been more freedom for people to be true to themselves and offer more of themselves, because they don't have to sit there and go, okay, I have to wear a white shirt and a tie. I don't get a tie around this neck, and dress pants. I hate that shit, right? So most days, if I have to be in a suit, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to be there. It's hot. I'm not focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing. But if I'm in there and I can be there in bare feet most times, if I would, I'm an African kid, I'll be barefoot all the time. I'll be happiest. And that's where sort of we need to slowly start transitioning and allow people to be what they want to be, irrespective. If you want to wear pink, purple, shorts, long pants, come in with a peak hat, well, wins do that, because it allows them to be true to themselves and then offer more of themselves all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks when I realized, because the brand's called the Live Free Group. And yet here was me going, oh, I need to fit this mold. And the funny thing is, since I've really gone, well, I'm just going to be me, guess what? The social media following, that's skyrocketed. The invitations to speak on stages, to be, to join, to be a guest on podcasts, like all of it, I've been offered a wide variety of different opportunities, because people have gone, well, we actually connect with you. The brand, yes, but you first, the brand second, rather than, okay, will you fit the bill of who you need to be? Sorry, I've just got a notification I'm going to get rid of there. You fit the bill of, rather than going, you fit the bill of what you need to be, so we'll take you on. Do you know what I mean?
So the most famous example, and anyone would know, is the Elon Musk-Tesla relationship. People either love or hate, irrespective of whether they like the car or the brand. Fundamentally, is they either want to work with Elon Musk, or they don't want to do it. And the same thing, right? And he's always been true to himself. He's not psychotic, but he's crazy. He's a savant. As Joe Rogan said, he's likely the only person in the world that could actually say, or the society could call that he could be an alien, because he's just so far out there and so smart and stuff like that. But just coming back onto to anyone that's listening, please do not feel the boundaries that are shifted on you. You have to keep there. Be true to yourself. Be yourself, because that is the sort of shit that's got us into society we are today, that people are having to come out and say, I've got anxiety, or I've got depression or mental health because I felt pressure by society. I felt pressure to hide my sexuality. I felt pressure to hide who I truly am to myself, what community or gender or race or anything I fit into. Be who you are. If anyone doesn't like it, as I always say, if people don't like what I have to say or the view I have on it, they can fuck off. Be true to yourself, as well as in life as in your business and what you're representing, and it'll go so much further.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of seeing Richard Branson speak about a month ago. And he just hit it home for me. I mean, I don't know whether you know a whole heap about Richard Branson, but he's the yes guy. I think he refers to himself as the tie-loathing adventurer. And I had this story playing out in my head of what a highly successful entrepreneur had to look like, and that guy is the opposite. And so hearing him speak and hearing about all this, I mean, I thought I knew a lot about him until I heard him speak and realized that I knew this much of his success. And then, realizing how much of just a free spirit he really is, and super successful as an entrepreneur. It's easy to see that.
And he was true to himself. He did everything true to himself, true to his brand. He is still there today. Some of it didn't work. Most of it did. But if anyone's gone back and read his original books that he did, unfortunately, it's slipping my head now. One of his first books he put out, I can see people throwing shit at the YouTube video, or they're throwing their cell phone for the book name. But he was always true to his image, and that's where he is today. And I can imagine, unfortunately, I know Richard Branson did not make it over into Auckland. That was part of the Success Resources speaking arrangement that he was over in Australia. But it would have been amazing to see him talk. So coming around to at the moment is, what is, as you come in sort of past the 40-minute mark for the session at the moment, is what is the 1, 2, or 3 sort of items for the listeners today that you want to leave them with from an insight or golden nugget that you want to give him at the end of 2019 to try to focus on in 2020?
The golden nugget I want them to focus on into 2020.
Put
own
you on
who
the
you
spot.
are. Yeah, you did. Own who you are, all of it. The things that you think aren't lovable, the things that you think you should be, like own all of it, because as humans we are these like dynamic, multidimensional creatures, and we're in a constant flow. We're in a constant transition process. We're forever changing. We're never the same person we were a moment ago. And like, that's the beauty of the human condition, that we get to always be growing. We get to always be changing and evolving. And the key to finding your power, whether that be in business, finances, relationship, physically, in sports, whatever it may be, the key to having everything that we want in life comes down to knowing who you are, loving who you are, and showing that to the world. That's where our gold lies. And when we're willing to show up as we are with courage, like, that's when it all comes flooding in.
No, that's awesome. It's such an awesome piece to leave people with, to go into 2020 and focus about themselves as well. Before we end off the show today, can you let the listeners know where they can find you, your brand, the .com, the handles?
Absolutely. So to follow along with my personal journey, you can check out Briana Bowley on both Facebook and Instagram. So I do have a Facebook business page, and that's spelled BrianaBowley. Otherwise, you can search the Live Free Movement, the Live Free Experience, or the Live Free Academy on both Facebook and Instagram. And then we also have the URL for the Academy, the educational platform's website, which is www.thelivefreeacademy.com.au. And of course, the podcast is available, the Live Free Experience, on all your favorite podcasting apps.
So I'm hoping that's a mouthful pretty much. Yeah.
Right?
Talking about your podcast, hoping to see that in January, that you'll be back on the podcast. I know, like you said, you're having to find yourself and having to change it, but 2 years and 90 episodes in, I don't want to see you walking away from it, because I know how hard most people challenge with it. Actually, funny enough, in a recording I just did last night, we spoke about that only majority of podcasters don't make it through year one. And or let's say this, majority of podcasters do one episode, and then the people that get through to the second episode, majority of them don't even get past year one. So to do 2 years and 90 episodes, by all means, hopefully we can see you back in the new year on the podcast.
Absolutely. I've already scheduled 3 episodes, so
awesome.
Back.
And to everyone else that has joined us here today, again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Whether you're listening on the audio series or on the YouTube series, make sure, as I've always asked before, if you have taken some insights, some golden nuggets, if you enjoyed this episode, all I ask from you is to share it to one friend or tell one person to come along and have a listen to the show. This is the way we can build up this platform. We can build up the brand, so we can allow the people like Briana that come on here to have the say that they can reach more people and impact more people's lives. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a beautiful and lovely day, and we'll speak to you soon.